why it's so easy to describe so many issues as a liver issue is that of the organs that are in charge of qi, it's the liver that's in charge of movement of qi, right? So, you've got storing qi, and you've got cleaning qi, and you've got building qi, and you've got these organs all doing their things, but the liver is in charge of that movement, right? And so many things now, it's hit a point where the movement is agitated already. They're living in a sympathetic, anxious state, or the diet is very spiked, or they're drinking a lot of coffee, that the qi is really moving. Anything added is just more, right? And then after a while, that liver loses that suppleness so that it's either swollen or dry or reactive, that anything going in causes a spike of movement. Because it's not that it was zero, like it's not like something happened and the liver turned this way, and then the person's living in zero, and then in comes the allergy, the pollen, or the food, and it goes whomp. Actually, the liver is barely holding on, and the qi is right here on the surface in the flow, so that anything has it spill over into symptoms we can see. So the object is, on one thing, you try and train the patient. And unfortunately, that doesn't work with most of these people, because in a prolonged existence in this framework is the yin is what ends up being very destroyed. And the yin here means that suppleness, or the ability for it. So if you have a tube that you use, like a water tube, and you're using it all the time, and it gets a ton of sunshine, and it gets a bunch of things, after a while, it loses its ability to do that. After a while, it starts to spring leaks, but it's in a shape that no longer has the ability to withstand a hot day and a cold night. It doesn't have that expansion ability because it's just been harassed. So in that case, when we do all the purging or the detoxing that everybody wants to do right now, that may get rid of that heat and that allergy, but at the same time, it pulls out what little yin is left. So they end up less agitated, but now the liver is even drier, for our analogy, this idea of like less suppleness, less oiled in there. So you like to cook flour, all right? You add water and you need your dough, but you need that dough to have a certain, it can't be slop, and it can't be, when you pull it, it breaks. It's not going to actually, you can't, right? You can't make it into a form of something. So it's all about that. And so much of these cleanses and things people are doing, or their food choices, when they've suddenly gone healthy, get rid of the moisture along with the irritant. So they end up, and it goes closer and closer to flour again without the moisture in it. And if we can get it so that it's moist again, the truth is, a good bit of flour, if I toss in some more water, it'll work in without leaving a problem. And if I toss in some more flour, it won't dry it up, right? And that's where we want to be. We want to be the perfect 和面, right? That's it. It's got to have that perfect consistency of dough, that a little bit of water is not a problem, and a little bit of flour is not a problem. Like damp, it gets introduced, it's okay. It can absorb that amount. And dryness gets introduced, flour, and it can absorb that. In fact, it does well with sprinkle some flour on the board, and then what you're doing, and then a bit of water. It actually enjoys being worked. And if it's gone too one way, that's all those years everyone wants to diagnose spleen damp, like the flour's just gotten gunky, right? But now, so many people seem to have it where it's dried up, that the yin has been taken out. So the object is, how do we get it to a place where when a stimulant comes in, it's not already going to just overflow. It's not that it goes in and then over. It's already there. So with children, that's particularly what we have to understand, is what is going on that even a tad of something sets it off. And then we want to stop and say, okay, do I need to really do a short-term but strong cleanse? Kids actually do pretty well with that as long as they have the constitutional health. If we were to go to a pharmacy in the mainland and get all the children pediatrics, they tend to lean heavily towards the really strong, nasty herbs. That the idea is it's appeared, flush it, and the system is healthy and young enough that it resets pretty easily. So we will see more use of tiannanxing, dananxing, and really nasty, nasty herbs that I don't barely prescribe just because, there has to be a reason when I can get it with an herb that's less nasty, right? That are in those kids' formulas because they're going for a very quick, clean, counting on these blockages here in the middle and below aren't stuck from years of other issues. And then there'll be the smaller section of the use of rebuilding the middle. So there'll be all the Shanja Wanso, Shanja, Shenxu, Maya, Bing Lang, and Da Fu Pi. That idea of what are we doing to rebuild their appetite in that process. So think of it more as it's not the liver, and therefore is that since the liver is no longer able to move the qi, everything is already right at the tipping point. So the object is either how do I soften the liver and let it calm? So everything kind of shrugs, instead of being the shoulders up here, it comes down. Or how do I get rid of what's shrugging the shoulders quickly so that, and then rebuild the liver so that as it rebuilds, there isn't this pressure on it. So that's the first thing to kind of look at. And I actually believe in writing children adult formulas and not changing the dosages to 2 grams, 3 grams. Because with children, rarely do you get, especially with small children, I've done a lot of pediatric work, is that you're getting barely any liquid in. So if you write a 2-gram formula and then you only get 1 eyedropper's worth in there, if the illness isn't serious, you're okay. If it is, that's not so good. That those parents then end up taking their child to the doctor, and then the child ends up on antibiotics or Adderall or something. Come on, let's do something at least to the equivalent of strength of that's going to do. So I write a strong formula, and then expect only a small amount to go in, and that's how I do that, and it's very effective. Within reason, right? I mean, no one's getting 45 grams of something or other, right? But how do we get that balance in there of, and if we can get that in kids, then we can really make a shift. And the places to do the biggest markers are that idea of either stomach heat or weak stomach. So we really track appetite, breath, and bowels, right? So if the parents report, and it's amazing how many parents have no idea how many times that child is pooping. It's in an old Chinese family, let me tell you, everybody's tracking that, right? And we had one parents, they were actually neighbors and friends. They were never patients, but they were having a lot of trouble with one of their kids while in 2nd grade, maybe 3rd grade. And I mean, he'd been kicked out of a school, and it was just all over the place. And I said, listen, it's not my place. You know what I do for a living, but I mean, I'm not trying to push anything. You need to get some X-Lax or Senecot, Senna, and you need to give it to him. And you need to really understand that if he's not pooping, he's going to be agitated. And if you make him poop normally, he'll be more normal. And if you make him poop too much, he'll be tired and much less. You can really control that there. And they were like, what? So they did it because they were desperate. And they would watch what was going on. And then within a month, the child would be like, ah! And then he would look at his mom and be like, I got to poop. And then he'd go poop and come out and be like, ah. And they were like, wow, right? So tracking that stomach heat, intestinal dryness, or stomach damp, lack of desire to eat, and poor digestion, sticky bowels, that is number 1. And then number 2 is sleep. So really the parents have to check in on that sleep. Are they really sleeping through the night? Are they night sweating? Are they kicking off blankets? What's happening? Are there night terrors they're unaware of as the kids get older? Then you really have to track those circles in the morning. And then our job then is to mess with that digestive line, mouth to anus, and then that sleep axis, AXIS, right? And if we can do that, then we can lessen that agitation in the liver, quote unquote. So we're addressing the liver by addressing the earth, right, and the fire. So whatever analogy we like, I could have made this 5-element very esoteric, or I could describe it the way I did, or I could describe it in a different thing. It's all the same as long as we clearly understand what that means in the patient, right? So we have that axis of mouth to anus and sleep, rest, energy cycle. And then once we have that, that will become calmer. And then we can say, okay, what's next? So how do I help what's left? So with a lot of kids these days, if you calm or soften the liver, right? Rong is an important thing. And that rong also implies vitality growing, and everybody wants to whack the liver the other way. But if you make it have lots of moisture back in it, it bends. And that's what's so important, is to get that life in there, because, everyone says the wood element. And I was very lucky when Professor Wong, he was like, that's not what that means. Everyone's like, you need to get a piece of wood. He's like, everyone's like, wood element, the wood element. They're like pointing at your table. Like, no, it's all the living branches. He said, come, look, this branch bends. Cut. That one didn't. This has moisture. It's a happy liver. This one doesn't, right? And, you really have to grasp that it's meant to be the living green aspect of that. What is the strength that allows the plant to stand up? It's a stalk. Like, what the heck is it doing standing straight up? What's holding it up? There's no spine. What's in there, and what happens if there's too much? It wilts or it rots. What happens if there's not enough water? What happens? That is what we're talking about. And he said, wood doesn't burn if it's wet, if it's alive. If it's dry, wah, wah, right? Liver, rah. And so if we look at it as the liver as a house plant, what do we need to do to make that house plant green, not brown? Learning to use the 3-herb combination of yuanzhi, fuxiaomai, and shichangpu. Now, the fuxiaomai, we personally now use yiren instead, just because everybody's convinced they are gluten intolerant, or they have become gluten intolerant because of antibiotic use and the business around it. But if you grasp that 3-herb combination, and then you understand a little bit of mouth, anus, sleep, rest, sleep, awake, right? Literally, it's hung, shu, right? Sleep, awake, mouth, anus. You just get those 2 things a little bit. You could never study again. You could never have to worry about the Neijing, and you'd be able to afford a second house, a boat, braces for all your children, and private education, and it'd be great, right? And what's important to understand about that is that when you look at the emotions, and it's for the emotions of the kids, right? When you look at the emotions, that triumvirate is really key as a framework, because you've got yuanzhi, which is going to be nourishing but bitter. So it's going to give the idea of the person who's very scattered and has a lot of emotions and it gets overwhelmed very easily. So you start saying something and then you say, but what about this? And then they just like, oh, and then they, blah, and you're like, oh, I got to, that needs that bitter, not a purge bitter, but a gather bitter that's going to hold, right? And if you have the person that can't, that they get super angry and super frustrated, and there's a lot of this inside, you need shichangpu that's going to spread things out. And you need something that's going to clear out the heat of the heart through the urine. So fuxiaomai, traditionally used. So if you need to clear out heat and out of the emotions, then your fuxiaomai is a heavy dose, and your shichangpu and yuanzhi would be tailored. If the child has a lot of depression and doesn't want to do anything and doesn't want to engage in life, and you give them a ton of shichangpu, what little qi they have is going to get more scattered. So the object in learning to use these 3 herbs is not just knowing when to put in which one, but why would you not use this herb in a larger dose in this patient? If you can answer why not, then you understand the matrix, right? So in depression, shichangpu is not helpful. Yuanzhi is, right? In the super anger or volatility, you know that the shichangpu has to be big and the yuanzhi can't be too much. You need a little bit of anger, and then your P has to be based on how much, right? So how much do you need to lift them up? How much do you need to spread things out? And how much do you need to pop a hole in the cork and have it go out? And a lot of that emotionality can disappear. So a lot of kids who are ADHD today, who are not true ADHD, as I talked about those hummingbirds earlier in the week, or a lot of kids who just aren't motivated and all they do is sit around and play the video games. They don't want to engage in life. You learn those three herbs in combination and who's bigger, who's smaller, and then you fix that line and the sleep rest, and Arkawa, Sharawa, all right, you become known as like Sunsumyo, like the pediatrics came.